Imagine for a second realizing that every single moral rule you were ever taught as a child,
Right.
like to be polite, to follow the rules, to avoid making waves,
Yeah, all those basic things.
that it was actually just a mechanism designed to keep you weak and predictable. Welcome back to DFC Books.
It is so great to be back.
Before we really dig in today, I just want to ask you to, drop your comments below, let us know your thoughts as we go along, and please leave us any book requests you want us to cover in the future.
We love building these deep dives around the material that you're most curious about.
Totally. So today, our mission is to take a profound deep dive into a text that, honestly, it genuinely challenges the entire foundation of how we live.
It really does. We are talking about Hermann Hesse's classic 1919 psychological and spiritual novel, Demian.
And I want to state our premise right up front. This isn't just some standard coming-of-age story about a boy growing up.
Oh, definitely not.
It is a radical blueprint for tearing down the world, in order to discover the person you are actually meant to be. So, okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah, let's jump in.
In the prologue of the book, the narrator, Emile Sinclair, establishes this incredibly high-stakes view of human existence. He argues that every single human being is a valuable, unique experiment on the part of nature.
Which is such a powerful phrase.
Right, like we aren't just faces in a crowd or cogs in a machine. He says every person is a remarkable point where the phenomena of the world intersect once and for all and, never again.
It is a staggering amount of pressure to place on an individual life, isn't it?
Yeah.
I mean, the entire discussion we're about to have is framed by this core argument in the text.
Yeah.
The life of every person is an attempt at a path toward themselves. But here is the tragic catch that the book introduces right away.
Which is brutal, by the way.
It is. Most people never actually achieve this. They remain, in the author's rather brutal words, frogs, lizards, ants, or maybe human beings above and fish below.
Wow.
Yeah, they don't ever fully individuate.
Okay, let's pump the brakes right there, because individuate is a pretty heavy psychological term. For anyone who isn't, steeped in Carl Jung's theories, what does that actually mean in the context of this book?
Sure. So think of individuation as the process of becoming your completely authentic self, separate from the expectations of your parents, your culture, or, well, your society.
Right, stripping all that away.
Exactly. It is the psychological journey of shedding everything you merely inherited and discovering the core, irreducible truth of who you are.
Which sounds exhausting.
Oh, it is. The mission of our deep dive today is to explore how one actually achieves that through the lens of Sinclair's journey. The book posits that becoming fully human requires a painful, often destructive breaking of the mold.
And as we get into this, I really want you, the listener, to reflect on your own life. Think about the pillars of your own worldview.
That's a great exercise.
Like how many of your beliefs, your political leanings, your values, your fears, how many of them were simply handed to you by your parents or your teachers or, I don't know, your social media feed?
Probably more than we'd like to admit.
Right. And how many did you painfully, truly discover for yourself? Because that tension is the beating heart of Demian.
It absolutely is.
So to navigate this, we need to understand the core cast of characters, starting with our narrator and protagonist, Emile Sinclair. He is the lens through which we experience everything.
He really anchors the story.
Yeah, and when we meet him, he is a very fragile boy, completely torn between the safety of his parents' righteous, clean world and the overwhelming allure of what he calls the dark, forbidden world.
Sinclair is basically our baseline. He represents the average, comfortable citizen.
Yeah.
But the catalyst for his entire psychological upheaval is a character named Max Demian.
Who is just so fascinating.
He is. Demian arrives as a schoolboy, but he doesn't act like one at all. He acts like a gentleman, an adult, almost a prince moving incognito among peasants.
Yeah, he has this crazy aura.
Right, he bears this mysterious mark on his face, an aura of extreme maturity and self-possession. The text describes him as neither purely masculine nor feminine, but almost timeless.
Like an ancient animal or a spirit or something?
Exactly. He isn't just a friend. He operates as a spiritual catalyst who completely upends Sinclair's reality.
But I think it's crucial to note that before Demian can pull Sinclair out of his comfort zone, Sinclair has to be pushed to the absolute brink by someone else, and that's Franz Kromer.
Oh, Cromer.
Yeah, Cromer is the burly, older son of the local tailor. If Demian is the spiritual guide, Cromer is the physical manifestation of the dark world for young Sinclair.
He is a total nightmare.
He's a bully, he drinks, he spits through his teeth, and he ruthlessly blackmails Sinclair, introducing this sheltered boy to
Sure.
real, visceral fear and agonizing guilt.
Then, sort of hovering above all of this, is Demian's mother, Frau Eva.
She is such a massive presence.
She is a towering, almost mythological figure in the book. The text describes her as a universal mother, a daemon, fate itself, and even a lover.
Wow.
Yeah, for those who bear the mysterious mark, those who are awake and seeking their true selves, she is the ultimate ideal and the ultimate spiritual destination.
We also have Pistorius, who enters Sinclair's life a bit later when he's desperate for guidance. He's this eccentric organist, a former theology student who becomes a crucial mentor to Sinclair.
He has a lot of wisdom to offer.
He does. He is deeply knowledgeable about ancient myths, lost religions, and the mechanics of the human soul. But, as we'll explore later, he carries a tragic flaw. He is ultimately trapped in the past.
And to round out the psychological landscape, we should briefly outline two contrasting figures from Sinclair's later youth who represent completely different false paths to enlightenment.
Right, the extremes.
First, there's Alphonse Beck. He's the older boarding school boy who leads a teenage Sinclair into a cynical, rebellious life of drunkenness and pub crawling. It's a total surrender to chaos.
Just giving up completely.
Exactly. And on the absolute opposite end of the spectrum is Nauer. Nauer is a desperate, puny, ascetic boy who is obsessed with complete sexual purity and desperately wants Sinclair to be his spiritual guru.
Which is a surrender to extreme, life-denying order.
Precisely.
So we have our cast. Let's dig into the first major conceptual block of Sinclair's life, the theme of the two worlds, which is really the focus of Chapter 1. The setup here is fascinating.
It really sets the stage for everything.
Sinclair breaks down his childhood view of the universe into two distinct realms that exist right on top of each other. First, you have the world of light.
Right, the safe zone.
Yeah, this is his parents' house. It's clean clothes, morning hymns, duty, model behavior, washed hands, straight lines leading into a respectable future.
It's the realm of absolute moral clarity. I mean, in the world of light, there are no ambiguities. There is good conscience, forgiveness, reverence, and unconditional parental love, provided you stay within the lines.
But right alongside it, literally starting in the kitchen and the woodshed of his own house, is the dark world.
The messy part.
Exactly. This is the world of the servant girls, ghost stories, slaughterhouses, drunks, rumors, thieves in the woods, and scandalous mysteries. I like to compare it to the front of house of a pristine, high-end restaurant versus the chaotic, noisy, messy kitchen in the back.
Oh, I love that restaurant analogy.
Right, you can jump between them in one leap, passing through a swinging door, but they feel like entirely different planets with entirely different rules.
And what's vital to understand is that Sinclair is inexplicably drawn to the kitchen. He feels the dark world is somehow more vigorous, more real, more alive, even though merely brushing up against it gives him a terrible conscience.
He loves his parents, but he finds their pure world slightly sterile.
Yeah, he's bored by it on some level.
Which brings us to the inciting incident. Make sure to note this because it is the most important event of this first chapter. Sinclair is hanging out by the river with some rough neighborhood boys, including the bully Franz Cromer.
Right, trying to fit in.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
to impress Cromer and these kids he doesn't even really like or respect, Sinclair invents a total lie. He claims he stole a whole sack of premium golden pippin apples from a local orchard.
And Cromer just immediately springs a trap.
He does. He says the orchard owner is offering a 2-mark reward for the thief, and Cromer threatens to turn Sinclair in unless Sinclair pays him the 2 marks as hush money.
The psychological fallout of this single moment is immense. Because of this lie and the resulting blackmail, Sinclair's sanctuary is completely destroyed.
It's just gone.
Suddenly, the world of light is closed to him. He goes home, looks at his father's hat on the rack and his mother's sunshade, and realizes he's defiled. He feels he no longer belongs to them.
That is so sad.
But the brilliance of Hesse's writing is how he diagnoses Sinclair's true guilt. Sinclair's real sin wasn't the lie itself. It was the moment later that evening when his father scolded him merely for having muddy shoes, completely unaware that his son was harboring this massive criminal secret.
And Sinclair actually feels a flash of superiority to his father in that moment. He looks at his dad and thinks, if you only knew what I'm dealing with.
He despises his father's ignorance. The text explicitly calls this the first crack in the sacrosanct person of the father. the first incision in the pillar of his childhood.
Which is huge.
To become his true self, Sinclair ultimately has to destroy that pillar. He realizes his father's morality cannot protect him from the reality of the dark world.
But I have to challenge the logic of Sinclair's actions here. Like, let's look at human behavior. Why does Sinclair invent a crime just to fit in with Cromer and these kids?
It's a great question.
He's terrified of Cromer. He knows his clean clothes and good manners are a target on his back. Why not just stay quiet or make an excuse and leave? Why volunteer a story that gives a predator leverage over you?
It points to a deeply universal human urge, the desire to dip a toe into the dark world to assert independence from the sterile world of light.
So he wants to be a little bit bad.
Exactly. Sinclair is suffocating under the expectation of being an angel. He feels the dark world is closer to his innate human nature than it is to his pure, flawless sisters.
Okay, that makes sense.
By inventing a crime, he is subconsciously trying to build a bridge between himself and the rough vigor of the dark world. He wants to prove he isn't just a fragile little rich boy, but he gets in way over his head.
He doesn't understand the real currency of the dark world, which is power and exploitation.
Right. He's totally unprepared.
And that miscalculation plunges him into absolute terror. He's breaking open his own piggy bank, stealing from his mother's purse, handing over pennies to Cromer, living in a constant state of nightmare. He's trapped.
Completely trapped.
And then the new boy arrives at the grammar school, Max Demian, which kicks off chapter 2.
Demian's arrival completely disrupts the social ecosystem of the school. He wears a mourning band, he doesn't engage in the petty squabbles of the other boys, and he has this eerie, adult-like presence.
He doesn't seek validation from anyone?
No, not at all.
The turning point, and genuinely the most important event of chapter 2, happens after a scripture lesson. Demian walks home with Sinclair and offers a completely radical reinterpretation of the biblical story of Cain and Abel.
This part is wild.
Yeah, and through the philosophy of this story, Demian eventually frees Sinclair from Cromer's blackmail, and he does it without throwing a single punch.
We really need to dissect that reinterpretation carefully, because it is the philosophical bedrock of the entire novel.
Okay, lay it on us.
The traditional story, the one taught in the world of light, is that Cain killed his brother Abel out of jealousy, and God cursed Cain with a mark to identify him as a murderer.
Right, that's the Sunday school version.
But Demian suggests something entirely different. He suggests that Cain was actually a noble, fearless, powerful man. The mark of Cain wasn't a physical brand or a punishment from God. It was an aura. It was a sign of intense intelligence, courage, and self-possession.
Demian argues that the weaklings, Abel's people, the herd, were simply terrified of Cain.
Yes.
They couldn't defeat him physically or intellectually, so they invented the story of the curse to justify their own cowardice. They demonized him to protect their own fragile worldview.
The psychological profoundness of this cannot be overstated. Think about how society operates.
Right.
We constantly demonize those with original character.
Oh.
We label the extraordinary, the defiant, or the overly independent as dangerous because they threaten the cohesion of the herd. Demian's interpretation turns Sinclair's entire moral universe upside down.
Suddenly, being an outcast, carrying a secret burden, being marked, isn't a sin, it's a distinction. It means you are awake.
Exactly.
I understand the metaphor, but I have to push back here. Like, if you take this literally, Demian is essentially apologizing for a murderer.
I know, it sounds intense.
Isn't that just a philosophical defense of sociopathy? If everyone decides they are a special, marked individual who is above the law and can strike down anyone in their way, society instantly collapses into violent chaos.
That is the exact danger of misinterpreting this philosophy, and Hesse is aware of it. Demian isn't advocating for literal murder or sociopathy.
Okay, good.
He is using the myth to talk about intellectual and spiritual independence. The murder of Abel is symbolic of destroying the weak herd mentality within oneself, or breaking free from oppressive societal norms.
So it's an internal battle.
Right. It is about the courage to stand alone in your truth, even if society brands you as a monster for it. Demian is trying to show Sinclair that his paralyzing guilt over the Cromer situation is a symptom of his inherited Abel-like weakness.
And Sinclair gets to see the practical application of this Cain energy almost immediately. Sinclair finally breaks down and confesses his Cromer problem to Demian.
A huge relief for him.
A few days later, Sinclair is walking down the street and he sees Cromer approaching. But instead of threatening him, Cromer literally cowers, turns around, and runs away. Sinclair is stunned.
It's a great scene.
Later, Demian explains that he didn't beat Cromer up, he didn't even yell at him, he just used this intense psychological presence, what he calls the staring out technique, to intimidate Cromer into leaving Sinclair alone.
This is a master class in behavioral psychology.
But how does that actually work? It sounds like magic, frankly. How does a psychological presence force a seasoned bully to retreat?
Well, it isn't magic. It's about disrupting power dynamics. Predators like Cromer operate on very specific scripts.
Yeah.
They rely on the prey acting like prey.
Showing fear, averting their eyes, begging.
Exactly. When Demian approaches Cromer, Demian doesn't play the game. He maintains absolute, unnerving eye contact. He projects complete fearlessness and certainty.
Which freaks Cromer out.
To a bully, someone who is entirely unbothered by threats is terrifying because it implies they have a hidden power. Demian's radical self-possession shatters Cromer's script. Sinclair watches this and realizes that Demian has a power that the world of light, with all its prayers and good manners, completely lacks.
It's an incredible revelation, but as Sinclair grows older, he actually runs away from this revelation for a while. He retreats back to the safety of his parents once Cromer is gone, kind of burying his head in the sand.
Yeah, he regresses a bit.
This brings us to Chapter 3, and a crucial shift in his adolescence. Sinclair is a bit older now, preparing for his religious confirmation, and he is forced to attend classes with Demian.
And it's in these confirmation classes that the philosophical stakes are raised even higher. Demian isn't just reinterpreting Genesis anymore. He's taking aim at the core of their religious education.
Which leads to the most important event of this chapter. Demian shares his highly controversial take on the biblical story of the two thieves who were crucified next to Jesus.
And this is where Demian introduces the concept of the middle path, the necessity of acknowledging the dark.
Yeah, this part of the text completely blew my mind.
It's so good.
The traditional lesson is that one thief repents at the last second and goes to heaven, while the other mocks Jesus, goes to hell. The lesson is about the power of forgiveness.
Right, the standard interpretation.
But Demian looks at it and says that the thief who repents at the last second, the sniveling convert, is weak and sentimental. He's just hedging his bets, trying to save his own skin when he has nothing left to lose. But the unrepentant thief, Demian argues that he has real character, because he stays true to his own path, his own devil, right to the bitter end. He doesn't fake a religious conversion just because he's 2 steps from the grave.
It's a shocking perspective for a teenager in 1919 to articulate.
Yeah.
But Demian goes even further, expanding this into a macro philosophy.
He goes super broad with it.
He asserts that humanity is fundamentally unbalanced because we only worship the God half of the world, the light, the pure, the officially sanctioned, the sanitized. He says that half the world is artificially suppressed.
The dark side, the instinctual, the messy, the carnal parts of life are just as real and just as much a part of creation.
Right. He suggests there should be a God that encompasses both the light and the dark, or else we should have the honesty to conduct a separate worship of the devil.
And this is the moment the puzzle pieces violently snap together for Sinclair.
Exactly. This is the moment Sinclair realizes his personal childhood theory of the two worlds, the pristine living room versus the messy kitchen.
It isn't just a quirky kid's coping mechanism.
No, he discovers that his private psychological struggle is actually a microcosm of a massive, ancient philosophical problem. The struggle between the authorized world and the suppressed world is the entire story of humanity.
And there is this incredible chilling scene shortly after this discussion that proves Demian isn't just a clever, edgy teenager playing devil's advocate. Sinclair is sitting in class, the teacher is groaning on, and Sinclair looks over at Demian.
This scene is so eerie.
Demian has gone into a deep, rigid trance. Sinclair describes his face as looking like an age-old, dead yet alive animal mask made of stone. He's not even breathing visibly. He's tapped into something primeval, a celestial space of lonely death. It absolutely terrifies Sinclair.
It terrifies him because Sinclair realizes that the polite, articulate Demian he talks to is only the surface layer. The real Demian is something much older, something deeply rooted in the collective unconscious of the universe.
Wow.
He is witnessing the daemon within Demian operating at full capacity.
This journey into the hidden layers of the human soul is incredibly intense. And hey, if you are finding value in this deep dive into how we construct our realities, make sure to hit that subscribe button right now so you never miss a deep dive with us.
We really appreciate the support.
We are just getting into the wildest, most transformative parts of Sinclair's journey. So let's move to Chapter 4, his teenage years, the period of his descent. Sinclair goes away to a boarding school in a different town.
A huge transition.
He is separated from Demian, separated from his parents, and he goes into a total psychological freefall. He falls in with an older, cynical boy named Alphonse Beck, and Sinclair becomes a drunken pub crawler. He is completely wallowing in the dark world.
It's a classic teenage rebellion, but Hesse treats it with profound psychological weight. Sinclair is desperate for connection, but he feels entirely isolated from his peers.
He's so lonely.
He acts like a hardened, worldly rebel, boasting and drinking, but inwardly he is completely disgusted with himself. He is living in a state of self-destruction.
Right? He hasn't found freedom. He's just traded the tyranny of the world of light for the tyranny of the dark world. He is still a slave to external forces.
Very well said.
Until we reach the most important event of Chapter 4, his time at boarding school. He's walking in a public park one day, hungover and miserable, and he sees a beautiful, pure girl walking by.
And this changes everything.
He doesn't even speak to her. He never learns her name, but he silently names her Beatrice after Dante's ultimate muse. And just the sheer sight of her inspires a total, radical self-reformation.
It's wild how fast it happens.
He stops drinking immediately. He starts reading philosophy. He cleans himself up. And he tries to paint her portrait from memory. But here's the psychological twist. The portrait mysteriously transforms as he paints it over several weeks.
This is such a cool detail.
When it's finished, it doesn't look like the girl in the park at all. It looks like Max Demian.
We have to unpack the concept of sublimation here, because that's exactly what Sinclair is doing.
Okay, what does that mean?
Beatrice isn't a real person to him. She's purely a symbol. Sublimation, in psychological terms, is the process of taking unacceptable or destructive impulses, like his self-loathing, his dark urges, his chaotic drinking, and channeling them into something constructive, creative, and elevated.
So he redirects the energy.
Right. Beatrice represents a sublimation of his dark urges back toward a world of light. But crucially, it's on his own terms this time. He isn't being good because his parents told him to. He is building his own altar. He is choosing his own ideal.
But the true revelation is the morphing of the painting. Sinclair looks at the face on the canvas, which resembles Demian, but also have distinctly feminine qualities.
It's very ambiguous.
It looks like a young man, but also a woman, but also an ancient statue. And he realizes it's not a picture of Demian at all. It's actually a picture of his own daemon, his own inner fate. He has subconsciously painted his own soul.
Let's define daemon for a moment, because it's not the same as a demon. In ancient Greek philosophy, a daemon is a guiding spirit, a lesser deity, or the true divine inner nature of a person. It is the blueprint of who you are meant to become.
So Sinclair is finally looking at his own blueprint.
Exactly.
It's his inner self staring back at him from the canvas. And seeing this face unlocks something deep, something primal in his subconscious. He remembers a vivid dream he had about the old faded coat of arms above the doorway of his childhood home.
The bird dream.
Yeah, in the dream, he sees a bird struggling fiercely to break out of an egg. So, compelled by this energy, he paints this bird, a massive sparrowhawk with a cruel head, breaking out of a dark globe into a blue sky, and he mails the painting to Damian's old address, just hoping it somehow reaches him.
Which brings us directly to Chapter 5, and the conceptual core of the entire novel, the message of the bird and the egg.
Sinclair is sitting in a dreary classroom one day, and he finds a small piece of paper tucked securely into his textbook. It's a reply from Demian.
The famous quote.
And here is the most important event of Chapter 5, reading this note. It says, "The bird is struggling out of the egg. The egg is the world. Whoever wants to be born must first destroy a world. The bird is flying to God. The name of the god is called Abraxas."
That message is the thesis statement of the entire novel. It is the ultimate distillation of what it means to individuate.
It is so incredibly powerful. And right after receiving this cryptic, earth-shattering message, Sinclair experiences another massive intellectual awakening.
Meeting Pistorius.
Yes. He's wandering the town one evening and hears this incredible, amoral, deeply passionate organ music coming from a locked church. It sounds like someone wrestling with the cosmos.
I love how Hesse describes music.
He waits outside in the cold and eventually meets the organist, a man named Pistorius. They go to a tavern, and later they sit by a fire in Pistorius's dusty room, and Pistorius becomes his new mentor, teaching him the meaning of that name, Abraxas. And I have to ask you to break this down for us, because what exactly is Abraxas?
So Abraxas is a figure from ancient Gnosticism. As Pistorius explains it to Sinclair, Abraxas is a god that represents the absolute reconciliation of the godly and the satanic.
Oh, wow.
Remember Demian's argument about needing a god that encompasses both the light and the dark? Abraxas is that god. He contends the entire spectrum of existence within himself.
Creation and destruction, male and female, light and dark, good and evil.
Exactly. Pistorius teaches Sinclair a radical concept, that every single human being carries the entire history, the entire evolutionary chain, and the entire potential of the world inside them. You have the capacity for infinite love and infinite cruelty.
That's terrifying.
We are only truly human when we become conscious of this totality, when we stop denying our dark half and learn to integrate it.
Okay, I really need to pump the brakes here because this sounds incredibly dangerous.
It definitely can be misinterpreted.
Does this mean the book is telling us to just go out and do evil things? If I have the capacity for cruelty and Abraxas represents both good and evil, should I commit crimes just to fully realize my human potential? Like, is this a philosophical blank check for bad behavior?
Absolutely not. And that is a very common, very dangerous misinterpretation of both Hesse and Jungian psychology. Demian actually clarifies this earlier in the text. It is not about committing crimes or deliberately hurting people.
Okay, thank God.
It is about not blindly accepting a complacent, handed-down morality.
Yeah.
You cannot rely on society, the church, or your parents to tell you what is right and wrong. You must take the terrifying, heavy responsibility of determining what is permitted and forbidden for you personally.
So it's about absolute radical self-responsibility.
Yes, if you truly follow your authentic inner voice, your daemon, you won't be a random criminal, because cruelty for the sake of cruelty is usually a symptom of weakness and suppressed fear.
Oh, that makes so much sense.
But if you follow your inner voice, you might be entirely out of step with the herd. You might make choices that society deems wrong because they threaten the status quo. Integrating your dark side doesn't mean acting it out destructively. It means acknowledging it so it doesn't control you from the shadows.
That makes a lot of sense. It's about knowing you have a sword, keeping it sharp, but choosing when to swing it rather than pretending swords don't exist.
Well, that's a great analogy.
Which is a massive burden. And we see the immense weight of this responsibility in the next phase of Sinclair's life, Chapter 6, where the roles are suddenly reversed. Sinclair is actively trying to live by this inner voice. Suddenly, this puny, neurotic kid named Nauer latches onto him.
Nauer is such an interesting foil.
Nauer is obsessed with being completely sexually pure. He practices asceticism, he starves himself, and he thinks Sinclair is some kind of clairvoyant spirit guide who can teach him how to eradicate his sexual desires.
It's a brilliant narrative mirror. Sinclair used to be the weak, frightened follower looking up to Demian for salvation from Cromer. Now, Nauer is the weak, frightened follower looking up to Sinclair for salvation from his own biology.
And Sinclair absolutely hates it. He doesn't want the job of being someone's guru, but he can't escape the connection. This leads to the most important event of Chapter 6, and it's honestly one of the most cinematic scenes in the book.
The suicide intervention.
Yes. Sinclair is restless one night in his room. He feels this strange, pulling sensation, a trance-like premonition that he needs to go somewhere. He wanders like a sleepwalker out into the freezing gray snow, walking all the way to the outskirts of town, right to the exact unfinished, abandoned building where Cromer used to blackmail him years ago.
Full circle.
And there, in the pitch dark, he finds Nauer, shivering and preparing to commit suicide. Sinclair intervenes and saves him.
He saves him by forcefully telling him he is on the wrong path. Nauer is trying to deny a fundamental part of his human nature, his sexuality, by trying to be purely a creature of the world of light.
Which we know doesn't work.
Right. Sinclair, having learned from Pistorius and Demian, knows that denying the dark side only leads to destruction, which, in Nauer's case, is literal suicide. Sinclair forces Nauer to accept that his desires are part of his nature. But the profound irony here is that while Sinclair is successfully guiding Nauer, his relationship with his own guide is falling apart.
Yeah, things take a turn.
The true tragedy of this section is what happens next with his mentor, Pistorius.
Right. Sinclair has a devastating relationship ending, falling out with him.
This raises an incredibly important question about mentorship, growth, and the limits of human connection. Sinclair realizes that while Pistorius has taught him brilliant concepts, how to look inward, the meaning of Abraxas, the mechanics of the soul, Pistorius himself is stuck.
How is he stuck? Like, what's holding him back?
Pistorius is what Sinclair calls an antiquarian. He's a romantic who knows all the ancient myths.
Yeah.
He knows about Abraxas. He knows about the cult of Mithras. But he is trying to resurrect dead religions.
Ah, I see.
He is looking backward. He doesn't have the courage or the vitality to create the new religion of the future, or to truly live out the dangerous philosophy he preaches. One evening, as Pistorius is rambling on about ancient rituals, Sinclair feels a sudden flash of irritation and accidentally insults him.
Oh no.
He tells Pistorius that is all so incredibly antiquarian, and the moment he says it, he realizes he has struck a fatal blow. It deeply, permanently wounds Pistorius.
It breaks my heart to read that scene. Pistorius doesn't yell or fight back. He just goes perfectly quiet, stares into the fire, and accepts it. He knows Sinclair is right. His dream is dead.
It is heartbreaking. But Hesse includes this to highlight a brutal, universal truth about individuation. To truly become yourself, you eventually have to outgrow and abandon your teachers.
You have to walk alone.
You do. You have to kill the Buddha on the road, so to speak. Sinclair realizes Pistorius was a necessary bridge, but a bridge that can only take him so far. Pistorius belongs to the past. Sinclair must step into the future.
That terrifying loneliness, the realization that no one else can walk the path for him, drives Sinclair forward into his university years, which brings us to Chapter 7 and the introduction of Frau Eva.
Finally.
Sinclair's at the university, but he's completely detached from the typical student life of drinking and fraternities. He is desperately searching the crowds for the woman from his dreams, the face he painted that looked like Demian, but also like a maternal goddess.
He's obsessed.
And one day, he sees a photograph and realizes the face belongs to Demian's mother.
And this leads to the most important event of his early adulthood and of Chapter 7, the reunion. Sinclair finally tracks down Demian, he meets Frau Eva in the flesh, and he is immediately accepted into their secret circle of marked individuals.
I really want to spend a moment on Frau Eva because she is such a unique presence. When Sinclair finally meets her, he is overwhelmed. He kisses her hands and tells her he feels like he's finally reached home.
It's a very emotional meeting.
She looks exactly like the painting he created from his own soul. She is beautiful, deeply maternal, commanding, and infinitely wise. But she corrects him gently. She tells him, one never reaches home, but wherever friendly paths intersect, the whole world looks like home for a time.
She is the living embodiment of the anima, the feminine inner personality in Jungian psychology, fully realized in the external world. Let's delve into the philosophy of this secret circle that gathers around her and Demian.
Yeah, who are these people?
It's a fascinating, eclectic mix of people. There are astrologers, Buddhists, Kabbalists, and various spiritual seekers. They are all observing the state of Europe around them.
And what do they see when they look at Europe? Like, what's their take?
They see a society entirely driven by the herd instinct. They see people flocking together, forming political parties and nationalist movements, not out of love or genuine community, but out of absolute terror.
Wow, that hits close to home.
Doesn't it? People are terrified of the unknown within themselves, so they huddle together and aggressively attack anyone who doesn't conform. The circle believes that the current world is spiritually bankrupt. It's a machine running on dead laws, dead religions, and hollow traditions.
So they're waiting for it to end?
They believe this world must inevitably collapse and be destroyed so that humanity can evolve. They aren't trying to change the world politically. They are just trying to be internally ready to plant the seeds of the new world when the old one shatters.
And within this intense apocalyptic atmosphere, Sinclair falls deeply, painfully in love with Eva. But it's not a normal grasping romance. It's a spiritual trial.
She doesn't make it easy for him.
No, she gives him this incredible, piercing insight into the nature of desire. She tells him that love must not entreat and it must not demand. It must have the power to attract.
Let's apply that to the modern world for a second. Think about modern dating or how people seek validation today. Most people approach relationships from a place of deficit.
Oh, absolutely.
They are begging for love, entreating someone to fix them, or demanding affection to fill a void. That kind of love is desperate and repellent.
Exactly. She tells him that if he can make his love so strong, so focused, and so certain within himself, he won't have to chase her. She will be naturally drawn to him like gravity. She becomes the ultimate physical and spiritual embodiment of his destination. He has to stop grasping and start being. He has to generate his own gravity.
It is the ultimate test of his individuation. He has to find the certainty entirely within himself, not by begging it from her. He has to become whole.
Which perfectly sets the stage for Chapter 8, the massive climax of the book. The cataclysm they've been waiting for, the brishing of the world, finally arrives.
The war.
Sinclair describes the sudden, violent onset of war. Now, the text refers to this as the war with Russia, which maps historically to the beginning of World War I. But I want to be very clear here, the text doesn't take political sides, and neither do we.
Right, that's not what this is about.
We aren't analyzing the geopolitical causes of World War I. We are strictly reporting how these deeply philosophical characters experienced the sudden eruption of global violence.
Precisely. We are looking at the philosophical implication of the conflict within the narrative framework Hesse built. The characters do not view the war as a patriotic duty, a noble defense of the homeland, or a political maneuver. They see it entirely through the lens of their mythology.
The most important event here in the final chapter is when Sinclair is drafted, goes to the front lines, and is severely wounded during a night bombardment.
It's a chaotic scene.
As he lies bleeding in the mud, he experiences this massive cosmic vision. He looks up into the sky and sees Frau Eva in the clouds, as huge as a mountain range. The ranks of soldiers are literally swallowed up into her massive form, and in a terrifying mix of destruction and creation, she gives birth to thousands of shining stars that leap across the dark heavens.
Let's unpack how the characters view the war. Remember Demian's message. The egg is the world. Whoever wants to be born must first destroy a world.
So they see this as the destruction of the egg.
Yes. They view the outbreak of this global slaughter not as an end, but as beginning. The war is the world literally being rent asunder. They believe the violence, the chaos, and the destruction are terrible, primitive manifestations of the human soul's desperate need to be born anew.
It's an intense way to look at it.
The old, dead, herd-driven world is violently shattering itself so that something new can eventually emerge.
It's an incredibly grim but awe-inspiring way to view a historical tragedy. Sinclair wakes up from this apocalyptic vision in a military hospital, lying on a thin mattress on the floor of a makeshift ward. He is heavily bandaged and in pain, and he turns his head, and right next to him on the adjacent mattress is Max Demian.
This final scene is one of the most incredibly moving sequences in literature. Demian is also severely wounded, and he knows he is dying. The physical journey of his character is at an end.
He leans close to Sinclair in the quiet of the hospital ward, and he tells him that he will have to go away. He says that if Sinclair ever needs help again, if the metaphorical Cromer or anyone else comes back to threaten his soul, Demian won't come physically on horseback or train anymore.
He's saying goodbye.
Sinclair won't be able to just call out for his friend. Instead, Sinclair will have to listen carefully to his own inner voice, and he will find Demian within himself. Then, Demian gives Sinclair a gentle kiss on the lips. A kiss, he says, is a final gift from Frau Eva. And the next morning, when Sinclair wakes up, the mattress next to him is occupied by a stranger. Demian is gone.
So we have to ask, what does this all mean? How do we interpret this deeply symbolic, quiet ending after so much philosophical turbulence?
Yeah, how do we wrap our heads around this conclusion? Is it a tragedy because his friend is dead?
Well, if we synthesize everything we've discussed today, this ending is not a tragedy, it is the ultimate victory. It is the completion of Sinclair's journey of individuation.
Because he finally found himself.
Yes, he has fully integrated his daemon. He no longer needs external guides. He doesn't need the safety and purity of his parents' world of light. He doesn't need Pistorius to explain the ancient myths. He doesn't even need Demian or Frau Eva in the physical world anymore.
He carries them with him.
He contains them. The last line of the book is Sinclair looking into the dark mirror of his own soul. And when he looks, he doesn't see a frightened boy anymore. He sees his own face, and it completely resembles his friend, his leader, his ideal, Max Demian. He has finally, truly become his true self.
Wow. The bird has finally broken out of the egg. The world of his childhood has been destroyed, and he has been born.
It has. And as we wrap up this deep dive, I want to leave you, our listener, with a final thought to mull over, applying this century-old text to your life right now.
Let's hear it.
We live in a modern world that is increasingly defined by algorithms designed to predict and control our behavior, curated groupthink on social media, and the extreme, numbing comfort of the modern herd.
Which is so true.
In a society that rewards conformity with likes and punishes originality with cancellation, what does it actually look like today to bear the mark of Cain? If the egg is the world, what world are you currently allowing to confine you, and what beliefs, relationships, or comforts would you have to destroy within your own life to truly be born?
What an incredibly profound question to end on. It requires real bravery to answer. Thank you for tuning in to DFC Books for this incredible, mind-expanding journey. Please don't forget to drop your comments and book requests below. Keep reading, keep questioning everything you've been taught, and until next time, keep diving deep.